On Monday, June 14, 2021, in the Kido ward of Osaka, Japan, a man paced anxiously outside a karaoke bar. For the past few days, the bar owner, Inada Mayuko, had been exhibiting unusual behavior. Since Friday evening of the previous week, she hadn't responded to anyone's messages, and her phone was constantly turned off. By Saturday evening, a day after losing contact, a regular customer wanted to visit the bar, but was surprised to find the door locked. This was highly unusual because the bar typically opened at 3:00 p.m. Normally, if there was any reason to temporarily close, the owner would announce it on social media beforehand. However, this time, there was no announcement whatsoever. At 1 p.m. on Sunday, when employees arrived for work and tried to open the door, they found it still locked tight. Sensing something was wrong, they immediately contacted the police. After receiving the report, police began investigating and reviewed security camera footage from the building. The results showed that on Friday afternoon of the previous week, cameras had recorded Mayuko entering the building. Strangely, there was no footage of her leaving afterward. By Monday, Mayuko's close friend began to feel seriously concerned about her disappearance. He contacted the building management and requested to use the spare key to check on the situation. When he opened the bar door, he witnessed a heartbreaking scene. Mayuko had been murdered. The forensic examination revealed multiple clear wounds on the victim's body, and the time of death was determined to be Friday evening, 3 days earlier. This shocked everyone because, according to employees and customers, the bar had operated normally until 9 p.m. on Friday night. No one could understand how everything had gone so wrong. The victim, Inada Mayuko, was 25 years old and had a gentle personality. During her childhood, her family faced financial difficulties, forcing her to drop out of high school to work and earn money. However, with strong determination, Mayuko self-studied and passed the equivalency exam for high school graduation. She didn't stop there. She also pursued psychology at university with the dream of becoming a psychologist. Alongside her studies, she continued working not only to support herself, but also to provide financial assistance to her family. Additionally, she dreamed of opening her own karaoke bar. To save enough money, she worked multiple jobs, even taking work at funeral homes. A year before the incident, she began preparing for opening her bar. From choosing the location to decorating and designing posters, she did everything herself. Finally, in January of the year the incident occurred, she successfully realized her dream. When sharing with friends, she often talked about the complex psychological experiences during her journey to open the bar. Her startup timing unfortunately coincided with the COVID-19 pandemic outbreak when the government advised limiting large gatherings. Under these circumstances, this type of business didn't receive support from family and friends. Nevertheless, Mayuko persisted in pursuing her dream. She wanted to transform this small establishment into a female-friendly karaoke bar. For this reason, she offered preferential rates for female customers. For every customer, she always expressed sincere gratitude, often escorting them to the door and taking commemorative photos as a way to show appreciation for their visit. Although initially not skilled at communication through daily customer service, Mayuko's social skills improved significantly. A friend recalled that even when chatting with her closest friends, she maintained a polite and considerate attitude. She never took advantage of friendships to ask friends to promote her bar, which made everyone feel comfortable around her. Mayuko also got along well with neighboring restaurant and bar owners, frequently supporting them and being loved by everyone. Yet now, she had died in the very establishment she had poured her heart into. It was hard to imagine who could have had the heart to kill such a kind person. At the crime scene, police discovered numerous signs indicating the perpetrator had prepared thoroughly. Mayuko's phone was found wrapped tightly in aluminum foil, clearly a method to block signals. The bar's security camera system was installed, but the memory card had been deliberately removed. More notably, the key box for the main door, which was originally placed outside with password protection, now appeared inside the bar. All these details pointed to one thing. The killer not only intended to erase traces of the crime, but also wanted to delay the discovery of the incident. This was clearly the work of someone consciously opposing law enforcement investigation. Just 4 hours after receiving the report, police made an important breakthrough. Through analyzing security cameras throughout the building, they identified a suspect. This person was Miyamoto Hiroshi, 56 years old, from a well-off family with a lawyer father. He had studied electrical engineering at a prestigious national university and after graduation had stable employment at an electrical engineering company with an annual salary of over $90,000. Hiroshi married in 2001 and had 2 daughters. The older was over 20 while the younger was in high school. In his colleagues' eyes, Hiroshi was quite secretive and lived very frugally despite having a stable income. Notably, despite his relatively high salary, he owned only 1 suit and 3 dress shirts. Because the company required employees to wear formal attire daily, he often had to wait until weekends to do laundry. He had a habit of soaking his dress shirts in bleach solution to ensure they remained pristine white. With his only suit, he was even more careful, occasionally taking it for dry cleaning to maintain its neat appearance. However, there was another aspect of Hiroshi that few suspected. He was a regular customer at Mayuko's bar. Each visit, he typically spent at least $90 and tended to stay until closing time. According to other customers, Hiroshi had a habit of singing karaoke with a terrible voice, often choosing songs like the One Piece theme or other songs that he sang very poorly. In karaoke culture, someone continuously hogging the microphone and singing non-stop is considered impolite, especially when that person lacks singing talent. Because of this behavior, many customers expressed annoyance and complained about Hiroshi. When police conducted statistics, they discovered an astonishing number. From January 2021, when the karaoke bar opened, until June, when the incident occurred, Hiroshi had visited the bar a total of 83 times. This meant he visited approximately every 2 to 3 days, particularly on the fateful Friday night when the incident occurred. He was also present at the bar, another important detail that caught investigators' attention. The company where Hiroshi worked specialized in phone components and electrical materials. With this professional knowledge, he would completely understand that wrapping a phone in aluminum foil would block signals. This coincidence quickly made police consider him a suspect. Indeed, their suspicions were proven correct. During the search, police discovered Mayuko's blood on the inside right pocket of Hiroshi's suit jacket as well as on his shoes. Not only that, experts found Hiroshi's fingerprints on the duct tape used to bind the victim. Notably, 2 weeks before the incident, Hiroshi had purchased this exact type of duct tape at a store near his workplace. Particularly, police found Hiroshi's wedding ring at the crime scene, from which experts had extracted Mayuko's DNA. All these clues from various angles pointed to the killer's identity. The forensic report further strengthened and the evidence by confirming that the wounds on the victim's body were directly related to Hiroshi's wedding ring. With this solid pile of evidence, just 1 week after the incident was discovered, police arrested Hiroshi. Under questioning by investigators, Hiroshi admitted that he had visited Mayuko's bar on that fateful night. However, he adamantly denied any involvement in her death. This attitude from the suspect didn't surprise police, as they had prepared plenty of other evidence. When news of the arrest spread, the reaction from regular customers at the bar was quite notable. Many of them weren't particularly surprised, even saying they had sensed this would happen. To better understand the relationship between the victim and suspect, police analyzed all message records in Mayuko's phone and collected testimony from those around them. When the investigation went deeper, a complex picture of the relationship between the two gradually emerged, with each piece of the story beginning to fit together. To understand the origin of this relationship, we need to go back 5 years. Mayuko was working part-time at another bar and was well-loved by customers, frequently receiving small gifts from them. Meanwhile, Hiroshi had already been a familiar face at this bar for 4 years. According to the former bar owner, Hiroshi typically came alone, always dressed neatly in an elegant suit with a business briefcase. He had a fairly regular schedule, once a week and always arriving very early. However, everything began to change when Mayuko appeared. Hiroshi's frequency of visits increased significantly, and each time he came, he requested Mayuko's exclusive service. There was one incident that left a deep impression on witnesses. On a busy evening, when the bar was short-staffed, Mayuko had to temporarily serve other tables. When Hiroshi learned of this, he suddenly stood up abruptly, shouted, "That's enough!" and stormed out angrily, shocking everyone in the bar. Hiroshi also had a habit of frequently bringing gifts to Mayuko, but an interesting detail was revealed by a regular customer. Mayuko actually didn't like sweets at all. However, Hiroshi persistently gave her items like pancakes, chocolate, and other sweet treats. He seemed unconcerned with her actual preferences, only hoping she would like what he gave her. This was clearly behavior stemming from personal obsession rather than genuine care. When police examined Mayuko's phone, they discovered a treasure trove of messages from Hiroshi. Most were one-way messages he sent, including daily greetings, weather forecasts, or sharing about his meals. Meanwhile, Mayuko only occasionally politely replied with brief responses. Despite receiving rather cold treatment, Hiroshi persisted relentlessly, even continuously calling. Though most of these calls were rejected, Hiroshi's obsession didn't stop at private messages. On social media, he showed concerning levels of fanaticism. Whether it was the bar's business account or Mayuko's personal account, whenever she posted any updates, Hiroshi would immediately comment and share as if monitoring her activities 24/7. Although Hiroshi never publicly expressed romantic feelings, all employees at the former bar could recognize what he was feeling. The situation became tense when Muko decided to quit. At this point, conflict between the two erupted and Mayuko had to tell Hiroshi directly that he shouldn't come to the bar anymore. Although the specific reason for this argument remains unclear, the two clearly had serious disagreements. However, fate brought them together again when Mayuko opened her own bar. On January 18, 2021, the opening day of her karaoke bar, Hiroshi made a special appearance to show support. Before coming, he had even sent a message praising Mayuko's courage and determination. However, the opening night became a night full of tension. Mayuko was overwhelmed by the unexpectedly large crowd, making her unable to pay attention to Hiroshi, feeling neglected, nor could she escort him out as usual. The feeling of being ignored completely changed Hiroshi's mood. After leaving the bar, the messages he sent carried a completely different tone, full of self-pity and apologies. He began to appear remorseful about what he had done that evening. Mayuko, with her polite nature, still tried to thank the former customer for coming to support her. However, her response triggered a storm of phone calls. Hiroshi began calling continuously, dozens of calls in a short period. He justified this by saying he just wanted to congratulate her directly and hoped to hear Mayuko's voice, but this behavior clearly frightened her. Mayuko chose not to answer, only replying by text message the next afternoon. Every word in the message was carefully considered, trying not to hurt or provoke Hiroshi. "You called too many times. You must have had a lot to say. I'm sorry. I'll try to find a way to keep moving forward." Instead of understanding Mayuko's apprehension, Hiroshi became even more excessive. From then on, whenever he felt neglected at the bar even slightly, he would immediately make continuous calls questioning her online. His tone also gradually became more accusatory and aggressive. The situation only improved when Mayuko truly couldn't bear it and frankly said she felt very annoyed. Only then did Hiroshi somewhat restrain himself and promised to limit calls to a maximum of 2 per day. By June, Hiroshi wanted to take the relationship further. For his birthday, he invited Mayuko to a restaurant to dine together. There he had prepared a private birthday party, even opening a bottle of champagne to celebrate. Muko was initially very hesitant, worried about being alone with Hiroshi in a confined space. Eventually, perhaps due to pressure or not wanting to hurt a customer, she reluctantly accepted the invitation. However, throughout the party, Muko tried to maintain a safe distance from Hiroshi, appearing cautious and uncomfortable. When the party was about to end, Mayuko gathered all her courage to say what she had wanted to say for a long time. She gently but clearly suggested, "Could you please not come to the bar anymore?" This was a very clear request to end this customer relationship. However, Hiroshi seemed to completely ignore Mayuko's request. He continued acting as if that conversation had never happened, still freely visiting the bar and continuing his harassing behavior as before. This pressure finally forced Mayuko, a person who was typically patient and rarely complained, to complain to friends about a customer who continuously harassed her. This surprised Mayuko's friends greatly. They knew she was someone with high tolerance, always trying to mediate and rarely complaining about customers. The fact that she had to say such things proved the situation had become so serious she could no longer endure it. A regular customer at the bar shared notable observations about Hiroshi. He said that each time he came to the bar, he often saw Hiroshi sitting alone at the bar counter, quietly sipping his drink in silence. One night, he accidentally overheard Hiroshi mentioning that the next day, he would attend his daughter's graduation ceremony. This statement surprised the regular customer because of a contradictory truth. On one hand, Mayuko and Hiroshi's daughter were roughly the same age. Yet, Mayuko had become the object of Hiroshi's pathological obsession. On the other hand, even when about to have an important event like his daughter's graduation, Hiroshi still couldn't control himself, continuing to drink until late at night. This lack of self-control was incomprehensible. Another piece of evidence about this complex relationship was found in Mayuko's phone. She had a special customer list, noting preferences and characteristics of each regular customer to provide better service. In this list, the note about Hiroshi was simple and rather cold. When singing karaoke, need to adjust microphone volume lower, a tactful way to deal with his terrible singing voice. In contrast, for the male friend who later discovered her body, Mayuko had left an affectionate note, "Hope we can spend the rest of our lives together." The clear difference in emotional expression through these lines said everything, no further explanation needed. Looking at the information gathered, it appeared the relationship between Hiroshi and Mayuko had become tense, but seemingly not serious enough to lead to deep hatred. So why did Hiroshi decide to kill Mayuko? This question remains unanswered to this day. The only thing that can be confirmed with certainty is that he directly participated in this murder. The fateful night unfolded according to a seemingly normal scenario. Hiroshi came to the bar as usual and stayed until near closing time. Mayuko, with her typical kindness, let other employees leave early and stayed alone to clean up the bar. At this point, only 3 people remained in the bar: Mayuko, 1 employee, and Hiroshi. Following the long-established routine, Mayuko escorted Hiroshi to the bar entrance and took a commemorative photo as a polite gesture showing gratitude to customers. During the photo moment, Hiroshi deliberately pressed close to Mayuko, then appeared satisfied as he left. At 9:30 p.m., the last employee also finished their shift and went home, leaving Mayuko alone in the bar to continue organizing and cleaning. This was precisely the moment Hiroshi had been waiting for. In reality, after leaving the bar, he hadn't left the building as it appeared. Instead, he had secretly taken the elevator down to the lower floor and hidden himself in the stairwell area on the ground floor. When he heard the sound of the last employee leaving, Hiroshi confirmed that only Mayuko remained alone in the bar. That was when he decided to return to the bar, beginning the horrific crime about to unfold. With the evidence collected, the prosecutor's office formally filed murder charges against Hiroshi. However, this case faced a major challenge in prosecution. Because the crime occurred in a confined space with no direct witnesses and lacking security camera footage of the actual crime, the verdict might not be completely certain. Legal experts noted that the key factor in the trial would be proving that besides Hiroshi, no one else could have been the perpetrator. To do this, police conducted a meticulous investigation, reviewing everyone who had entered and exited the building during the time frame of the incident. They verified alibis for each person individually and ultimately concluded that only Hiroshi had the full conditions and opportunity to commit the crime. 1 year after the tragedy in September 2022, the trial officially opened at the Osaka District Court. Hiroshi faced murder charges. The prosecution presented a detailed account of the case, presenting crucial evidence, including the complete line message records between the defendant and victim. They asserted this was a carefully planned case, with Hiroshi having prepared duct tape and weapons beforehand, while also taking actions to destroy evidence. With these serious charges, the prosecution requested the court sentence Hiroshi to life imprisonment. The defense had a completely different perspective. Hiroshi's lawyer argued that no murder weapon was found at the scene, nor was there any security camera footage recording the crime process. Therefore, they believed the existing evidence wasn't strong enough to prove their client's guilt and requested the court declare him innocent. Throughout the trial, Hiroshi remained completely silent. He sat in the defendant's chair without responding to any questions, not even basic questions like his name and birth date from the judge. Only when his defense lawyer leaned over and whispered reminders did Hiroshi reluctantly speak with a meaningful statement. "What's the point of doing this if it's just for politeness? Please don't continue." Witnesses began to be called to court. The first was Mayuko's boyfriend. He recounted that even during their dates, Mayuko often received calls from Hiroshi, mainly about giving gifts and similar matters. Mayuko had appeared annoyed and expressed frustration about these continuous calls. Her boyfriend also revealed an interesting detail. Mayuko often called Hiroshi the weatherman because he had a habit of sending weather messages every morning. For most people, being called a mocking nickname like the weatherman would certainly make them uncomfortable. However, when hearing this in court, Hiroshi seemed to have no emotional reaction whatsoever. He just sat dully in the defendant's chair, his eyes fixed on some point in space. The next witness was Onada Yuzik, the victim's older brother. With an emotional voice, he said that to help his sister rest in peace, he hoped Hiroshi could voluntarily confess his guilt, repent for what he had done, and offer a prayer for Mayuko. He just sat dully in the defendant's chair, his eyes fixed on some point in space. The next witness was Onada Yuzik, the victim's older brother. With an emotional voice, he said that to help his sister rest in peace, he hoped Hiroshi could voluntarily confess his guilt, repent for what he had done, and offer a prayer for Mayuko. After speaking, Yuzik suddenly stood up, causing surrounding guards to immediately prepare to intervene to prevent any potential conflict. However, what Yuzik did next moved everyone in the courtroom. He simply bowed deeply before Hiroshi and said, "Please don't hurt Mayuko anymore. Let her rest in peace. I beg you." This attitude was completely opposite to previous times when Yusuke had shown anger and cursed at Hiroshi. When the atmosphere in the courtroom became tense to the extreme, something unexpected happened. Hiroshi suddenly spoke up with a clear, loud voice, "Please sentence me to death." Before anyone could react, he began a 50-minute non-stop speech. During this time, he systematically refuted all accusations from the prosecution and witness testimony. First, regarding the accusation of harassment via line, Hiroshi honestly admitted he had sent daily messages. However, he insisted he had repeatedly asked Mayuko whether she accepted this frequency and always received the answer, "It's fine." Particularly, he emphasized that just for days before the incident, his birthday, They had discussed this issue directly and Mayuko showed no annoyance. Regarding the continuous calls, Hiroshi explained that he called multiple times because Mayuko didn't answer, so he had to call back. As for sending daily weather forecasts, he said it initially started as accidentally sending weather information to Mayuko. And when she replied, "Very helpful, thank you," this encouraged him to continue sending daily. Similarly, sending food photos also stemmed from wanting to remind Mayuko to take care of her health and eat properly. One thing that surprised many people was Hiroshi's claim that he had no idea Mayuko had a boyfriend. He said that a month before the incident, when he asked her about dating or marriage intentions, she denied both. Hiroshi also insisted he had no romantic feelings for Mayuko, only wanting to maintain a pure friendship. Regarding his frequent visits to the bar, Hiroshi explained it wasn't because he wanted to see Mayuko, but because he admired her determination to achieve her dreams, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic's severe impact on the service industry. He wanted to support her, so whenever he was free, he would visit the bar. For the serious accusations about moving the key box and destroying camera data, Hiroshi firmly denied them, calling them baseless. He argued that although he knew the bar had security cameras, he didn't know the specific type, so even if he wanted to destroy them, he wouldn't know how. Most notably, Hiroshi claimed that the bar door was locked by Mayuko herself. He revealed that previously when working at another bar, Mayuko had been stalked by a customer to her home who had engaged in destructive behavior, breaking windows. This incident had left deep psychological trauma, making her always habitually lock doors carefully when alone to ensure safety. Regarding the bloodstains found in his suit jacket lining, Hiroshi also raised his own doubts. He questioned why bloodstains only appeared in the jacket lining and insisted he had been framed by someone who deliberately fabricated evidence to falsely accuse him. In Hiroshi's view, Mayuko had never shown hatred or avoidance toward him. To prove this, he mentioned that she not only attended his birthday party, but also personally prepared a $60 bottle of champagne and a small cake as gifts. These actions, according to Hiroshi, were clear evidence that their relationship was not cold or distant as the prosecution had described. As the trial neared its end, Hiroshi shocked everyone again by requesting the court sentence him to death while declaring he didn't want to answer any more questions. Faced with these contradictory statements, the prosecution rebutted sharply. They pointed out that while Hiroshi claimed to want the death penalty, he couldn't explain the true motive for the crime, showing he just wanted to casually end the trial. The prosecution considered this an extremely selfish attitude, lacking sincerity, and showing no signs of remorse. They emphasized that what Hiroshi had done was so serious, it couldn't be measured by an ordinary limited prison sentence. Throughout the trial process, one could observe Hiroshi occasionally exchanging words with his defense lawyer beside him, clearly showing irritation and dissatisfaction. Strangely, he both refused to admit to murder while requesting the death penalty, a contradiction that left many people puzzled and outraged. After a month of tense trial proceedings, the court finally reached its verdict. Hiroshi was convicted of murder and sentenced to 20 years in prison. In the judgment, the judge analyzed that Hiroshi had intense obsessive feelings for Mayuko that were not reciprocated, and this could be the motive driving the crime. His criminal behavior was assessed as brutal with serious consequences. However, the judge also noted that there was no objective evidence proving that in the 3 months before the incident, Mayuko had clearly rejected Hiroshi or shown any unusual behavior toward him. Therefore, the specific motive for the crime remained difficult to determine precisely. Nevertheless, this didn't affect the conclusion that Hiroshi was indeed the perpetrator. Considering all factors, the court deemed a 20-year prison sentence appropriate. Hiroshi didn't accept this result and filed an appeal. This decision generated various speculations. Some thought he was dissatisfied for not receiving the death penalty as desired, while others believed he still believed in his innocence and deserved freedom. Hiroshi's true thoughts were probably known only to himself. Despite filing the appeal, Hiroshi's contradictory nature emerged once again. He refused to attend the appellate court session, and even his defense lawyer felt puzzled, with several attempts at persuasion unable to change his mind. The lawyer frankly said Hiroshi had very strong self-esteem, was completely self-centered, and didn't care about others' feelings. In May 2023, the appellate trial opened at the Osaka High Court. At the appellate trial, Hiroshi still insisted on the possibility of a third party committing the crime. Compared to when he was first arrested, he looked much older, less neat, even wearing a black short-sleeved t-shirt. Although still wearing the same glasses, his hair was increasingly sparse, gray hair noticeably increased, and his skin more sagging. During the trial, Hiroshi's wife testified as a witness. She stated that family finances were entirely managed by her, with Hiroshi directly depositing his salary into a bank account she managed each month. Hiroshi had over $270 in monthly spending money. Each karaoke bar visit cost about $90, and considering his frequency of visits, she had no idea her husband had money to spend at bars until the incident occurred. After the incident, she had noticed her husband's finger was bandaged. When asked about the cause, he stammered that he had accidentally cut himself. 3 days after the incident, he also threw away a backpack he had used for many years, unusually spending a large sum to buy a new one. The wife said if her husband was truly guilty, she was willing to apologize to Mayuko's family on his behalf, though she still believed in her husband's innocence. In decades of marriage, her husband had always been gentle and polite, treating others humbly. She couldn't imagine such a person doing something so horrible. The judge determined that whether Hiroshi was the perpetrator was beyond doubt, and the reasons for sentencing him to 20 years in prison had been fully explained with the sentence within reasonable bounds. Therefore, 2 months after the appellate trial opened, the original verdict was upheld. Additionally, the court ordered Hiroshi to pay Nadayuko's family $270,000 in compensation. Although Miyamoto Hiroshi had to pay for his crimes, the wounds it left may never heal. The victim's family must continue living with irreplaceable grief. Inada Mayuko, the 25-year-old woman who dreamed of becoming a psychologist and aspired to build a female-friendly bar, was unable to see her establishment flourish or complete her career dreams. Her life ended at the very place she had poured her heart into building. And that concludes today's case. Thank you for following along and see you in the next video.